Welcome back to one of South Africa's premier racing series, the South African Rally Raid Championship, where the best of the best do battle in some of the most spectacular racing machines on the planet. This is round 3 of the 2025 season, and all the action is brought to you by Ford, ICAM, #Team Hilux, and this time also Inco Tools. Welcome to round 3 of the 2025 South African Rally Raid Championship. This is the Vaal 400, and even though you're most likely watching this show a week after the previous one, the reality is that this round came mere hours after the previous one, in a spectacular double-header based at the Stonehenge River Lodge on the banks of the Vaal River. While both rounds were set in the same area, the route for round 3 featured all new terrain, a distinctly different route, and plenty of drama of its own. But in the designated service park at Stonehenge, it was day 2 of a rather hectic race weekend that saw all the teams tackle 2 full rounds of the National Championship. A tough prospect at the best of times, and a daunting one under the circumstances. The previous day's round had been a brutal one, with the route taking its toll on competitors and cars alike. To add to the drama, the results weren't clear by the time the sun set, as the stewards dealt with a variety of challenges in order to correctly identify the winner. In the end, it was Toyota Gazoo Racing's Guy Botterill, partnered with Spanish co-driver Oriol Mena, who was crowned as the victor. But that result was only confirmed after the event. Back in Paris, it was all systems go for round 3. But before we delve into the second part of the doubleheader in Paris, let's take a moment to see how the points stacked up after round 2. Bear in mind that these points were not available at the time, but with the benefit of hindsight, we can see just how closely things were balanced. It was TGRSA's Sahoud Variawa, partnered with French co-driver Francois Cazalet, who held a narrow lead over former champion Janelle de Villiers, who is now partnered again with Dennis Murphy. Guy Botterill and Oriol Mena in the second TGRSA Toyota Hilux were just 4 points behind de Villiers, and still well in touch with the leaders. Ford's own former champions Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer were just 2 points further back, making for a very tight battle at the top of the table. Fouchier Blichnout and brother Bertus, driving out of the #Team Hilux Rally Raid stable, rounded out the top 5. So those are the numbers, and here's how things played out at round 3 of the 2025 championship. Since the DSP was identical to the day before, all the familiar elements were still in place. The VIP area, which is an extremely popular addition to the Rally Raid Championship, was in its usual spot right next to the start-finish arch, in the middle of the DSP action. Beyond it, sponsors Inco had a comprehensive display, where they also sold tools directly to the public, a nice touch given their interest in the sport. Serious sponsors like ICAM, Ford and #Team Hilux were all in attendance, but the very next order of business was the Falcon Wild Peak Prologue. At just 1.4 kilometers in length, the qualifier proved to be a short, sharp affair on the Friday of the race weekend, and the expectations for the Saturday were no different. As the morning dawned, a light drizzle marked the start of the day's action, as all the crews lined up to take the starters' orders. In the end, only 14 seconds separated the top 10 crews over the short distance, testimony to the quality of the competition we have in South African Rally Raid racing. To make things even more interesting, the top 10 consisted of a mix of classes, including both the top flight FIA machines as well as their South African counterparts. Brothers Johan and Werner Horn are no strangers to the sport and have proven to be tough competitors over the years. For many seasons, the Malelan Toyota lads campaigned their venerable Gifpijl, but now feel the state-of-the-art monster as part of the #Team Hilux Rally Raid stable. At the Inco Vaal 400, they went 10th fastest in the Falcon Wild Peak Prologue, trailing the winners by just 14 seconds. Redline Motorsports' Jaden Els, who is partnered with Johan Swemmer, brought their Revo T1 Plus GTR machine home 4 seconds ahead of the Horns, good enough for 9th place in the prologue. They had Vos Prinsloo and Andre Vermeulen ahead of them by 3 seconds. The Castrol NWM Ford Rally Raid driver missed out on the opening round of the season due to injury, but was having a good run at the doubleheader. He went 8th fastest, just 7 seconds behind the winners. The winners from the previous day, Guy Bottrell and Oriel Mena, posted the same time as Prinsloo and Vermeulen, one of 3 cars to stop the clock on the same second. But in the results, the Toyota Gazoo Racing SA crew were classified in 7th place, while Team Hilux's Forshia Blichnout and brother Bertus pegged 6th place. All 3 cars just a single second behind the crew in 5th place. Had it not been for a dog that caused Gareth Woolridge to hit the brakes on his Castrol Ford Evo Plus not once but twice, the former champions may well have topped the prologue charts. But as it turned out, the dog lived to tell the tale, and Woolridge, who is partnered with Boyd Dreyer, secured the 5th fastest time. Not a bad result all round. They were pipped by teammates Marcos Baumgart and Albert Neto. The Brazilians were a single second quicker than their South African stablemates, but that was good enough to go 4th fastest in the prologue. And so we reached the podium positions, and it was another icon of the sport, Gary Berthold, who set the 3rd fastest time. Berthold and co-driver Henry Kuurne stopped the clock on exactly the same second as the crew ahead of them, but they were classified in 3rd place on the day. The Hilux IMT Evo crew had a great run, setting them up for a good race. Ahead of them in the standings was another legendary driver in the form of Janelle de Villiers, who has renewed his partnership with his longtime co-driver Dennis Murphy. De Villiers and Big Murph now drive out of the Team Hilux stable, and they were clearly on a mission, bringing their DKR Hilux T1 Plus home in 3 minutes 40 seconds. But it was Toyota Gazoo Racing SA's young gun, Saud Variawa, who lit up the timing sheets with a run of just 3 minutes 37 seconds, 3 seconds clear of his nearest competitors. Partnered with Francois Cazelet, the Joburg-based driver has shown exceptional form of late, and it came as no surprise that he set the fastest time on the Falcon Wild Peak Prologue. Let's check those numbers again. Variawa and Cazelet topped the charts, with de Villiers and Murphy in 2nd and Berthold and Kuurne in 3rd. Baumgart and Neto were in 4th, with Woolridge and Dreyer rounding out the top 5. Further down, it was the Blichnots ahead of Bottrell and Mena, with Prinsloo and Vermeulen in 8th, Els and Swimmer in 9th, and the Horns completing the top 10. Next up was the all-important draw for the top 10 starting positions. Road position is often a major factor in rally raid racing, and the fastest drivers get to nominate their starting positions. Despite setting the 7th fastest time in qualifying, Guy Bottrell decided to open the stage, hoping for a clean, dust-free run. The Blichnots would be 2nd into the stage, with Woolridge, Variawa and de Villiers completing the first 5 in the lineup. With the draw done, it was time for the crews to take on the first of 2 175-kilometer race loops. With the ceremonial start at the Stonehenge River Lodge, the cars would complete a short road section before the clock started near the Parys airfield, a familiar section to many of the crews. From there, they would traverse sections of rocky terrain, skirt around farmers' fields, and thunder down fast dirt roads, all in their quest for the fastest possible time. They may have gone 10th fastest in the prologue, but things went horribly wrong for the Horn brothers, scant kilometers into the first loop.
Yeah, we've got an issue with the power steering belt. As soon as you go through a water crossing, the belt jumps off. And we had the same issue yesterday, and they changed the belt and the tensioner, but still the first water crossing, the belt came off, so no, there's no power steering. But yeah, we'll fix it and we'll try again.
In the end, the brothers were excluded from the results anyway due to a technicality in the rules. A disappointing end to a promising race. There was also a disappointment for young Jaden Els and Johan Swimmer in their Redline Revo T1 Plus GTR. The pair had an altercation with the ditch just 5 kilometers into the stage. The rear of the car kicked up and they ended up rolling over. They emerged unscathed, but it was the end of their race, despite qualifying in 9th place earlier in the day. But it wasn't all doom and gloom. For Johan van Staden and stand-in navigator Sandra Jonk, the opening loop brought another solid performance. The pair had set the fastest time in their class the previous day, but they were right back in the mix despite racing a car with smaller wheels and less suspension travel than their competitors. They were 10 minutes 25 seconds down on the leaders after the first 175 kilometers. Ahead of them, Baumgart and Netto brought their NWM Evo Plus to the DSP for the mid-race service in the 9th fastest time. The Castrol NWM Ford Rally Raid crew were 1 minute 30 seconds ahead of Van Staden and Jonk, but their 7th position on the road clearly worked well for the Brazilians. Jürgen Schröder is no stranger to the championship. The German driver was paired with Stuart Gregory for the Inco doubleheader in Paris, and while he qualified outside the top 10, the experienced campaigner made up time hand over fist, bringing his WCT Amarok to the midpoint of the race in 8th place overall, just 7 minutes 53 seconds adrift of the lead. Guy Bottrell still had his tail up after winning the previous round, but there are no guarantees in rally raid racing. Together with co-driver Oriol Mena, the Germanite had elected to open the road, but found the going somewhat tougher than expected. Still, they were only 6 minutes 10 seconds behind at the midpoint, and with the route picking up pace, anything could still happen.
Something went wrong with the engine. About midway, we were going fine, and then instantly something went wrong. So I think we've lost the cylinder, spark plug, coil pack, something electrical, and we just hemorrhaged time. We couldn't get to 6th gear. Every time we tried to go up a gear, it just went slower.
Namibians Marco Hemmel and Francois Squinby compete in a South African version of the international FIA cars, and they certainly used their redlined Navara Evo to devastating effect. Setting a time of 2 hours 1 minute 53 seconds over the first loop, they found themselves in 6th place, a very strong position, especially considering that they qualified outside the top 10 earlier in the day. With that said, they were just over 2 minutes behind the car ahead of them, the flying Bosch Prinsloo and his co-driver André Vermeulen. The burly pairing showed the power of the NWM Evo Plus, bringing the Ford to the DSP just 3 minutes 37 seconds behind the leaders. A stunning return to racing for Prinsloo, who had missed out on the opening round.
Yeah, we had a clean run. A couple of cars were standing next to the road with problems, but we just kept going. And every now and then we pass another car, but we flat out and just keep on going. At the moment it's going fine.
Fouchier and Bertus Blichner have been improving steadily since joining the sport and are now fighting for overall podiums on a regular basis. But midway through the Inco Vaal 400, the hashtag Team Hilux crew found themselves just outside the top 3. They needed to make up another minute, however, to be able to spray champagne yet again, but for the moment they were 1 minute 46 seconds behind the leaders and in a great position for the coming loop. Third place for the moment belonged to pole sitter Sahud Variawa and Francois Cazelet in their TGRSA Toyota Hilux IMT Evo. After setting the fastest time in the morning and taking to the route as the 4th car into the stage, the pair set about the business of shaving seconds in every corner. Their strategy was clearly working, as they were only 48 seconds behind the leaders. But between them and the leading crew was Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer, who set the 2nd fastest time midway through the race. The pair may have braked twice for a dog in the prologue, but they found themselves just 3 seconds adrift of the lead after 175 kilometers of racing. It was a stunning performance by the Ford crew, and a tight dice for the win was clearly on the cards.
Yeah, so it's been a fast morning, good morning. Gareth's driving very well, been keeping good speed through the corners and stuff, and the car's doing very good, so we're in good spirits for the 2nd loop.
And that dice would be with none other than South Africa's Dakar winner Janiel de Villiers and his co-driver Dennis Murphy. The hashtag Team Hilux Rally Raid driver set a time of 1 hour 56 minutes 20 seconds over the 175-kilometer loop. This put him in the lead by a narrow margin, setting up a stunning three-way contest for the afternoon.
Finished with a puncture at the end, so the last 50 k's with a flat wheel wasn't too fun. Right-hand corners were very slow.
With the first race loop done and dusted, it was time for the crews to visit the designated service point at Stonehenge for a mandatory service stop. This gave the technical crews a chance to make emergency repairs where needed, for the race crews to take a short break, and for the fans to enjoy some interactions with Rally Raid Championships men and women, as well as the awe-inspiring machines they race. All the while, the guests in the VIP area enjoyed scrumptious food and first-person views of the racing, courtesy of iCam. But before we continue, let's quickly check those numbers again. After 175 kilometers of racing, it was De Villiers and Murphy who led the charge, but they had Woolridge and Dreyer right on their tails. Variawa and Cazalet were also within sniffing distance, while it would be folly to rule out the Blighnotes at this point. Prinsloo and Vermeulen completed the top 5. Behind them, it was Himmel and Schoenby ahead of Botterill and Menna, with Schroeder and Gregory in 8th, Baumgart and Neto in 9th, and Van Staden and Jonk in 10th place overall. But back to the action as the second and final race loop of the Inco Vaal 400 unfolded. This was a repeat of the morning's route, but as always in a race like this, the route had picked up pace during the day, with many of the corners becoming straighter and the straights becoming more clearly defined. As such, the pace of the leaders would be even more frenetic as the second part of the doubleheader hurtled towards its inevitable conclusion. As the second loop continued, so did the attrition amongst the top 10. But one man's loss is another man's gain, and as a result, Philip Botha and Stompie Maynard found themselves in the top 10 by the end of the race. The Red Light Motorsport crew finished the race 26 minutes 7 seconds adrift of the lead, but had every reason to be proud of a top 10 finish. Ahead of them came the Daklepak Rally Sport crew of Vic Versteinen and Teun van Dal in their Redline Revo T1+. The Dutch crew finished nearly 3.5 minutes clear of Botha and Maynard, taking 9th spot in the process. 8th place went to Van Staden and Jonk, the crew in the number 402 car punching well above their weight yet again. Despite the limitations of their machinery, the crew managed to mix it up with faster and more capable cars throughout the weekend, recording a second straight class win in the process. But in terms of sheer bragging rights, bringing the Renault Duster home in 8th place overall gave them plenty to smile about. The Brazilian crew of Marcos Baumgart and Albert Neto continued their good form in Loop 2, improving from 9th at the midpoint to 7th by the time they stopped the clocks at the finish. The Castrol NWM Ford Rally Raid crew were 21 minutes 32 seconds adrift of the lead at the finish, adding another good result to their recent run of form. But it was a big jump to Gary Berthold and Henry Koerner in 6th place, more than 6 minutes according to the timesheets. The veteran driver was clearly in no mood to hang around and made up a ton of time in the second loop. As a result, he finished only 15 minutes 8 seconds behind the winners in the end, a power performance by the Toyota Hilux IMT Evo crew. Which brings us to the top 5 crews who were separated by less than 9 minutes overall. In 5th place was Namibia's Marco Himmel with Francois Schoenby reading his notes. The red-lined Navarro Evo crew had another good run in Loop 2, closing to within 8 minutes 48 seconds of the winners by the time they reached the finish. This put them just 30 seconds behind the Flying Prinsloo and Vermeulen, who had another stunning run through the second race loop of the day. The NWN Evo Plus crew missed out on an overall podium by just 29 seconds, which marks one of their best performances to date. But before we get to the top 3 positions, let's take a moment to focus on some names missing from the results. Schroeder and Gregory, who were running well in the top 10 midway through the race, suffered a jack failure at a crucial moment and had to rely on outside assistance to get going again. But the damage was done and they tumbled down the order. And the Blichner brothers incurred a 10-minute penalty for deviating from the route, a bitter blow for the pair who were just outside the podium spots midway through the race. The deviation came after mechanical damage that saw them race in two-wheel drive with very little in the way of brakes during the second loop. The biggest name missing from the final results, however, has to be that of Janelle de Villiers and co-driver Dennis Murphy. The pair seem to have the race in the bag even midway through the second race loop. But as it goes with rally raid racing, road positions can have a massive effect on the outcome of the race. In this case, the Dakar legend caught up with the dust of a slower competitor, and he was unable to find a spot to pass. In the thick dust, de Villiers made contact with a concrete bridge support, bringing his charge to an abrupt halt. He was classified in 15th place in the end, but the top step of the podium eluded him. As it happened, the car whose dust caused heartache for de Villiers and Murphy finished in third place in the end. TGRSA's Guy Bottrell and Oriel Mena brought their Hilux IMT Evo to the finish just 7 minutes 49 seconds behind the winners, giving them their second podium in as many days. For Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer, round 3 of the championship brought redemption after a tough outing the previous day. The NWM Evo Plus crew finished just 1 minute 18 seconds off the winning pace, and while the time from the Vaal Peak prologue wasn't added to the overall time for the day, one has to wonder what might have been had that dog not interfered with their progress. Even so, it was a great outing for the Castrol Ford Rally Raid pairing, and they'll be happy to have bagged a good share of points. But in the end, it was the morning's pole sitter who completed a flag-to-flag victory at the Inco Vaal 400. Sahut Variawa and Francois Cazalet clearly have significant pace, having won a stage at this year's Dakar Rally. They've also been in the mix in the local championship for quite some time now, but this was their first victory on the national circuit. A hard-fought win, but well-deserved in the end. Here it is, confirmation of Variawa and Cazalet's win, with Woolridge and Dreyer in second, and Bottrell and Mena in third. Prinsloo and Vermeulen were in fourth, with Himmel and Schoenby completing the top 5. Further back, Berthold and Kuurne had a great race, while Baumgard and Neto did well in 7th. 8th went to the hard-charging Van Staden and Jonk, while Versteinen and Van Dal finished in 9th. Huerta and Maynard rounded out the overall top 10 of an eventful Inco Vaal 400. In the end, it was a stunning first victory for Variawa and Cazalet.
No, we've been so close to it so many times, and it just hasn't clicked, and today it went well. Now the results are definitely coming, the pace is there, we're working well together. He did an amazing job this today, and that car was amazing, the team did an amazing job, and also a big thank you to Guy for his teamwork in Loop 2.
Round 3 of the 2025 season also saw Marco Himmel and Francois Schoenby as the winners in the Ultimate T1 Plus SA class. The Namibians mixing it up with the top flight FIA cars all day. And in the Adventurer class, it was Johan van Staden and Sandra Jonk who showed their steel to finish in the overall top 10. Finally, the SSV class was won by Jeff Minnett and Rodney Burke in the Hydro Power Equipment Can-Am Maverick, while Henk Klaassen and Gerard Skutte took the honours in the Challenger class. And with that, we draw a curtain over the spectacular double-header in Parijs. And what a weekend it was! We're off to the Garden Route next for the first ever race set at the Louvain Guest Farm. This one promises to be a true spectacle with new terrain and a fresh route that will level the playing field once again. We'll see you there.